Welcome viewers, this is Tex of the Black Pants Legion. Now this is an interview. I've spoken with admins of Space Station 13 before, and they are notoriously antisocial types who generally don't like to talk with or at people for prolonged periods of time, as they are judge, jury, and executioner on a server and can't be seen demonstrating favoritism. At least in theory, anyways. Here's how this works. I'm putting out an open call to any and all Space Station 13 admins on any public listed servers or public unlisted servers. This call is here, so answer it. If you're interested in answering or participating in an interview about Space Station 13, its history, and your server, please respond and check the link below in the description to email me about setting up a time. I'll try to get to you as soon as we can set something up. That being said, this is an interview with a Space Station 13 admin. The questions are largely freeform, and the discussion does not exactly reflect the policy of the server in question, unless stated otherwise by the person I'm interviewing. The reason I say this is because I want to encourage an admin to be frank, honest, and open about their experiences without worrying that they're shitting on their server, or preventing them from being yelled at for representing the server community in a bad way. This is a point of view and not, I repeat, not an absolute definition of doctrine on said server. That being said, I welcome our interviewer. Please, internet person, tell me your name, you wish to go by, your server, and your admin rank.
So I'm Monster860, and I am the host of FTL-13 and the coder as well.
Alright, so the first question, tell us about your server.
Well, it's a server where, it's a server where you're on a spaceship instead of a space station. We try to have a generally medium RP level, sort of like Paradise. In fact, I usually try to kind of be like Paradise in some ways.
Alright.
With the server.
Why are you an admin on said server, and what made you volunteer your time?
Well, in June of 2016, I'd say, E. coli sort of, started this whole thing. He was in need of coders and stuff, so I basically volunteered my time as the coder and also the host as well.
Alright, and that leads to the next question. What is the hardest part of being an admin on your server?
Well, the hardest part of being an admin is figuring out who did what. In some cases, the logs are sometimes vague. You can't really play back what happened, so you have to sort of look at the logs and read them.
Alright, and what would you say are the greatest challenges you've ever faced as an admin, personally?
Personally, I'd say it's the people that don't technically break the rules, but they're still bad people without breaking the rules.
So they're kind of breaking the spirit of the rules without breaking the set doctrine of the rules.
Yes.
Okay. What do you think are the biggest problems and the greatest challenges with Space Station 13 today, or at least on your server, from the perspective of your server?
Well, you see, the biggest problem is that Space Station 13 is sometimes just badly coded.
Could you elaborate on that?
So, for example, there is some... Actually, I'm not sure about that one.
It's alright. It's alright. If you can think more about it later, we can certainly go back. Now, one of the questions I like to ask every admin is, how do you combat special snowflakes on your server? Everyone has these people who like to be, the center of attention and very unique, whatever that may be, on that server. How do you combat them? How do you bring them in line with what the server likes?
Well, that's actually kind of a difficult question to answer, because we haven't had many special snowflakes, or at least none in my experience.
Well, that's good to hear. Some people have expounded on that quite a bit, and some people say it's not an issue. So I just like to ask that and see what the opinion is. What is your opinion on people who play on your server and record, or what about those who stream? I've recorded many rounds of FTL-13, but how do you feel about that as an admin, and further feel about people who take it to the next step and stream it live?
Well, recording is, I think it's fine. Even if it's bad recording, like, casting in a negative light. I actually took like a recording, like I took some of the sound from that from like a video someone made and made it the end round sound.
Well, that's
So
cool.
when the round ends, it says like, the clouds getting loaded into the gun.
Ah.
It's
So you're just kind of working with it, making it part of the fabric of the server.
yes.
That's good. That's kind of an embracing it sort of thing. So here's a tricky question. What do you think makes a good admin good?
A good admin, well, like as like Rumulunti said, not pushing all the buttons. I mean, that's one of the major points. The other major point is being able to be fair with other people and actually being able to, know what all the buttons do, how to read the logs.
I can understand that. Somewhat of the small details of the game and through Beyond's interface, making it very challenging to find out, as you said, who did what.
Yeah. In some cases, for example, let's say someone murders someone else.
Yeah.
Now, when someone like performs an attack on someone, it's stored in the mob's like attack log. But let's say like the murderer like gibbs the victim and then somehow manages to gib themselves as well. Then the only evidence there is downloading a large file from the server, which is the full attack logs stored in file form.
That sounds like a pain in the ass.
Luckily, I'm pretty sure that's never happened, as far as. But
Yet.
it could happen.
Yeah, with Space Station 13, it's best to say never. With a little bit of trepidation, because someone will at some point. So, what makes a bad admin bad?
Well, as I said before, and Romomonti, of course, pushing all the buttons is a very bad idea.
I understand that, because I've seen the admin panel, and there's a lot of firepower there.
Yes, there is a lot of buttons. In fact, recently we've added some new buttons, like the button for spawning very large and terrifying amounts of ships that will screw up the NSV Astraeus very badly.
Awesome. So, on the nature of balance between shitcurity and the Grey Tide, what's your opinion on how to maintain said balance?
Well, ideally, I'd rather just not have assistance at all, but the problem is that the game simply will not cooperate with me when I try to disable the assistance. So basically, if Grey Tide is going around and stealing things, then security can just do whatever with them, because security is not your usual mall cops on FTL-13. They have powerful guns, like Stechkins.
Yeah, and as I've seen on FTL-13, they're more or less empowered to be ship's marines rather than security.
Yes, exactly.
So, speaking of shitcurity and the Grey Tide, here's a two-part question. Part A, how do you handle shitcurity when someone goes way above and beyond what is required and just starts putting the iron boot to everyone's neck?
Well, preferably, I'd say just tell them to stop doing that. Maybe apply some in character, like, just CENTCOM announcements, that kind of stuff.
So try to steer them without being too direct.
Yeah.
Okay, and how do you handle the Great Tide issue? Like, you have 10, 15 people join and all they want to do is break shit.
I'd just boink each and every one of them and tell them to read the rules, specifically this rule that says no great hiding.
Understood. And if they disobey, of course, you have many other punitive measures. As you said, many buttons to press.
Yes, buttons. They're
Buttons.
button-like.
Good. Now, in your opinion, what is the best AI law set and why?
I'd have to say it's, well, just, I'd say it's just like any sort of joke laws, like, I don't know. One thing I used to do a lot is make a law. This isn't on FTL-13, by the way, but I'd make laws like saying that I have the best butt on the station.
And that being an inviolate law of the AI makes things very interesting.
Yes.
So what is the best traitor you've ever seen as an admin?
Well, FTL-13 does not focus on traders very much. We've only actually had a couple of traders, and not mostly they were just either like we had at one point like randomly generated traders by accident, and they basically very quickly did the objectives, and then everyone was really pissed about that. So we try to avoid having antags that have the potential to cause very big holes and stop the round from continuing.
Yeah, I understand, because FTL is more driven about cooperation than antagonism, because the antagonism comes from outside, the other ships, the hostile planets, and things you're working on, and so forth. So, what is your best or favorite round of Space Station 13 you've witnessed so far?
Well, I'd say it was the time on Paradise Station. I mean, this isn't on FTL-13, of course, but when the crew worked together to set up the derelict station, which is basically, like that Russian station
Yeah,
off in
yeah.
the distance.
I've been to the derelict a few times on a few servers. It's pretty creepy.
Yeah, I actually managed to set up a singularity once. And the thing is that the chief engineer at the time actually got arrested by security.
Embarrassing.
For, like, I don't know, applying too much force to someone. So basically, he got borged and continued working on the derelict.
That's pretty amusing. So it's one of those things where you're not doing what you're supposed to, so we're gonna make you do something useful.
Yeah. I mean, like, he was working on the derelict before becoming a Borg. And he was, like, kind of, like, treating the thing as, like, his baby, which was, like, pretty funny.
I can imagine. Pet project, as it were.
Yeah.
So, what is the best sort of player for your station and community, and what is the worst? Like, what do you want to come to your community, and what do you not want to come to your community?
Well, ideally, I would like people to just, like, people that come from good, like, roleplay areas, like medium RP to high RP. People that come from there generally pretty good. Unfortunately, we also get some bad players, but the kind that we don't want is basically the hippie station kind of people that have have nothing better to do than repeatedly yell the N-word, making the server look bad.
All right, all right. Now, what is your favorite event on Space Station 13 and why?
Well, I'd say that would be the event with the abductors, because they provide like interesting gameplay without directly ruining anyone's round.
Yeah, because they can't kill people, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like on FTL-13 once, I got abducted as a bridge officer, and while they cut off all my legs, which usually is a bad thing, I was actually still able to do my job without any legs.
Gotta love those
Eh,
jobs you can do without legs.
yeah, it's basically one of those button pressing kill the other ship jobs.
Now, what is your least favorite event and why?
Well, the immovable rod event has been the target of being completely removed from FTL-13, or at least just commented out, I guess, because it usually results in the entire ship resulting in being unusable, simply because it tends to go right through the engine and destroy the TEG. So we just like remove that.
I can understand that's fairly catastrophic because the TEG with all of its piping is difficult to run, let alone fix.
And the big problem here is that it was happening every other round. And the same thing happened with Space Carp.
Space Carp are rather insane because individually they're not a big problem, but when there's a swarm of them, it's like, ah, crap.
Yeah. I mean, just the problem was that they just happened every other round.
Now, here's a question. I have been asked to ask or not FTL admins, but any admin I interview, because I talked with the Legion and we were talking about what sort of questions they would want to ask an admin. And one of them that I will ask you is, why are our prayers never answered?
Well, I'm sure you've never seen adminning from an admin's point of view, but sometimes the chat just goes very fast, and we're always like sometimes doing things like answering a helps and stuff, and investigating people, that kind of stuff, and sometimes we just don't have time for answering prayers.
I understand that. I understand that. So it just kind of gets lost in the mix.
Yeah.
All right. Now, do you usually play Space Station 13? And on what servers, what jobs, and why?
Well, I haven't really been playing all that much recently. I used to play as a research director a lot on a Paradise Station, and yeah, that was not really great. But on Yog Station, I played as a medical a lot, and that was pretty fun.
But why those jobs? What draws you to those jobs?
Well, medical specifically, the whole idea of being able to get players back into the game is nice.
Now,
And
well, yeah, continue, please.
there's usually a lot of action when you're playing medical,
Well, yeah,
especially if there's like blobs and stuff.
yeah. Space Station 13 seldom goes very long without someone being horribly wounded, often by their own stupidity.
Yeah.
Now, as an admin, how often do you press buttons?
Well, I press buttons when there is a need for buttons to be pressed, and I sometimes just press buttons when there's no need to press buttons. But so, like for example, at the end of the round once, we got a little bit. All the admins decided to, like, we all collectively spawn things. Pretty soon everything was spinning, so nowadays we no longer just we don't spin things anymore.
Well, I've seen you guys have a lot of fun. I remember there was somebody sent me the screenshot of you guys had built the slipping conveyor belt that ran into a gibber
Oh
on
yeah,
escape,
that.
and so
I forgot about that.
everyone gets to escape, and then they go down this conveyor belt and get ground into giblets, and they can't get off because it's like unbreakable windows on each side.
Yeah, if that happens to you, then you can be pretty sure that, in our opinion, you did very horribly as a crew.
Yeah, but it's pretty goddamn funny.
Yeah.
So, what is the most rewarding part of being an admin?
I'd say it's when things are just going well and there aren't very many griefers and things, because and there aren't people like trying to bend the rules.
So, just another day in space, condition normal.
Yeah.
Now, in your opinion, what is the very best map in all of Space Station 13? Which is the one you enjoy the most with the most depth and interesting places and stuff to do?
Well, the problem is I just simply only play on Box Station when I'm not playing on FTL-13. I only just play on Box Station because that's just the map I know. I don't like Meta Station because it just feels too big.
Have you tried Delta Station yet?
No, I have not tried Delta Station.
Alright, that one is enormous, but I understand. I mean, I spend a lot of time on Box Station. I used to know it a lot better, but it's very familiar. So, what is your favorite Antag role and why?
That's something I can definitely answer. It's Shadowling.
Why?
Even though it's not on FTL-13, Shadowling is a great role because the Antags get to work as a team. And being an Antag as the team is the best kind of Antag because it involves interacting with other people while being an Antag.
That's a good one. Here's the final question I have: clown or mime?
Uh, Clown.
Good
I
choice.
feel like the mime just doesn't really do much.
Now, as we've reached the end of the interview, do you have anything you want to communicate to the Space Station 13 community? Shoutouts, apocalyptic warnings, requests, or so on? This time is yours.
Alright, this weekend we're running the Trailblazer map.
The Trailblazer map. Elaborate.
It is basically a map that Costinus or Floyd was working on. It's basically like a larger and smaller at the same time map. I mean, physically, it's thinner and longer, but you have like more room to do things and a lot of things that are missing on the old spaceship map, the tuning fork as we call it.
Yeah.
We have a lot of those. We have some of those things on the Trailblazer. The munitions bay is larger. The AI has more space. The vault doesn't look like it sticks out like a sore thumb, and like the med bay looks more like a proper med bay instead of a tiny hole in the corner of the map. I mean, it's still pretty small, but
Yeah, I mean, you have to compact things down to get it all to fit on a ship, whereas the space
yeah,
station can just be this huge floating pile of spaghetti that goes in all directions.
of course. And the best part about the map is that the bar is the very center of the ship.
I like that. I like that a lot. So, when in doubt, you can always find the bar.
Yep.
All right, well, anyways, thank you for the interview and thank you for your time. This is Mr. Tex signing off.